The desert wind carried whispers of death across the Iraqi landscape as Lieutenant Sarah Ghost Martinez crouched behind the crumbling remains of what once was a marketplace. Her ghillie suit blended perfectly with the rubble and shadows, making her nearly invisible to the naked eye. 3 months into her deployment, she had already earned a reputation that made even the most seasoned Navy SEALs take notice. But tonight would be different. Tonight, she would face an enemy that had terrorized coalition forces for weeks. The intelligence briefing earlier that evening had been grim. A highly skilled sniper team had been operating in the area, picking off American soldiers with surgical precision during night operations. They moved like phantoms, striking from impossible distances and vanishing before anyone could locate their position. The locals called them the Night Hunters. And in just 2 weeks, they had claimed 17 lives. Command had tried everything: drone surveillance, thermal imaging, coordinated sweeps with full platoons. Nothing worked. The enemy snipers seemed to anticipate every move, always staying one step ahead. The psychological impact on the troops was devastating. Men who had faced down insurgent attacks without flinching now hesitated at doorways, knowing that death could come from any shadow. Sarah had volunteered for this mission against direct orders. Her commanding officer, Colonel James Harrison, had initially refused her request. The area was too dangerous, he argued, and sending a single operative against multiple confirmed enemy snipers was suicide. But Sarah had convinced him with cold logic and undeniable skill. She had studied the attack patterns, analyzed the ballistics reports, and identified something everyone else had missed. The enemy wasn't random in their targeting. They followed a specific pattern, a rhythm that revealed their methodology. Each attack had occurred within a 3-kilometer radius of an abandoned chemical plant on the outskirts of the city. The facility had been bombed during the initial invasion, but remained structurally sound enough to provide multiple elevated positions. More importantly, its underground tunnel system offered countless escape routes. As she made her final equipment check, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Growing up in a small Texas town, she had been the daughter of a Marine Corps veteran who taught her to shoot before she could properly ride a bicycle. Her father had recognized something special in his daughter's steady hands and unwavering focus. By age 14, she was outgunning grown men at local shooting competitions. The military had initially resisted her application for sniper training. Female soldiers were rare in combat roles, and snipers were considered the elite of the elite. But Sarah's scores were impossible to ignore. She had broken every marksmanship record at Fort Bragg and completed the grueling SEAL training program with distinction. Her instructors had nicknamed her Ghost after she managed to remain undetected for 72 hours during a training exercise, picking off targets while an entire platoon searched for her position. Tonight, those skills would be put to their ultimate test. The mission parameters were straightforward, but terrifying in their simplicity. She would infiltrate the enemy's operational area alone, locate their positions, and eliminate the threat. No backup, no extraction team, no communication. Until the job was finished. If she failed to check in by sunrise, the area would be bombed into oblivion, regardless of her fate. Sarah moved through the darkness with practiced silence, her rifle secured across her back and her sidearm ready. Every step was calculated, every breath controlled. She had spent hours studying satellite imagery of the target area, memorizing every building, every potential line of sight, every possible hiding spot. The enemy snipers were good, but they had made one crucial mistake. They had established a pattern, and patterns could be exploited. The first indication that she was close came at 2:17 a.m. A glint of metal caught her eye from the second floor of a partially collapsed building, roughly 800 meters to her northeast. It was barely visible, just a momentary reflection of starlight off what could have been a rifle scope. Most soldiers would have dismissed it as debris or imagination, but Sarah's training had taught her to trust her instincts. She settled into a prone position behind a concrete barrier and began her observation routine. Through her high-powered scope, She could make out the subtle shape of a human figure positioned behind the building's damaged facade. The sniper was well concealed, using the natural shadows and structural damage to create an almost perfect hide. But almost wasn't good enough against someone with Sarah's training. For 20 minutes, she watched and waited, studying the target's behavior and scanning for additional threats. Patience was a sniper's greatest weapon, more valuable than the most advanced equipment or the most powerful rifle. Her father had taught her this lesson during countless hunting trips, waiting motionless for hours until the perfect shot presented itself. The enemy sniper moved slightly, adjusting his position to track something in the distance. Sarah realized with growing alarm that American patrol was approaching from the south, completely unaware of the threat lurking above them. The soldiers were following their assigned route, but they were walking into a carefully prepared kill zone. She had seconds to act. The range was challenging, but manageable, well within her capabilities. Wind speed was minimal, visibility was adequate despite the darkness, and her position offered a stable shooting platform. Sarah controlled her breathing, allowed her heart rate to slow, and began the mental calculations that would determine whether 5 American soldiers lived or died. The crosshairs settled on the target's center mass. At this distance, a headshot would be too risky given the low light conditions and the target's partial concealment. A center mass hit would be equally effective and offered a larger margin for error. Sarah's finger found the trigger, applying the steady pressure that had been drilled into her through thousands of hours of training. The rifle bucked against her shoulder, the suppressed shot barely audible above the ambient noise of the desert wind. Through her scope, she watched the enemy sniper's body jerk and then slump forward, his weapon clattering down the debris-strewn floor. The American patrol below continued their movement, never realizing how close they had come to walking into an ambush. One down. But Sarah knew this was just the beginning. Intelligence suggested there were at least 9 more enemy snipers operating in the area, and her muzzle flash, however minimal, might have given away her position to any watching eyes. She quickly gathered her equipment and began moving to her next planned position, a rooftop approximately 400 meters to the west. As she moved through the shadows, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The enemy snipers had survived this long by being smart, careful, and ruthlessly efficient. They would have contingency plans, predetermined responses to various threats. Her successful elimination of their teammate would not go unnoticed or unanswered. The abandoned building she chose for her next position had once been a school. Bullet holes and shrapnel scars told the story of the violence that had swept through this area, but the structure remained solid enough to support her weight. Sarah climbed to the 3rd floor using an external fire escape, moving with the fluid grace of someone who had practiced such maneuvers countless times. From her new vantage point, she had an excellent view of the chemical plant and its surrounding area. The facility sprawled across several acres, its multiple buildings and tall smokestacks creating a maze of potential hiding spots. Sarah began a systematic scan of the area, looking for any signs of human presence or recent activity. The second target revealed himself at 3:41 a.m. A brief muzzle flash from one of the plant's administrative buildings caught her attention, followed by the distant crack of a rifle shot. Somewhere in the darkness, another American soldier had just become a casualty. Sarah felt a cold anger settle over her as she located the source of the shot and began planning her response. This sniper was more careful than the first, firing from deep within the building and using the structure's interior to mask his muzzle flash. But he had made one critical error. After taking his shot, he had moved to a window to observe the results of his handiwork. For just a moment, his silhouette was visible against the lighter background of the night sky. Sarah's second shot was even more precise than her first. The enemy sniper dropped instantly, his body disappearing from the window frame. She immediately began scanning for additional threats, knowing that the other snipers would be repositioning themselves in response to their comrades' elimination. The night was still young, and 8 enemy snipers remained somewhere in the darkness ahead. The hunter had become the hunted. Sarah could feel the shift in the battlefield's energy as the remaining enemy snipers realized they were facing a skilled adversary. Their casual confidence had evaporated, replaced by the deadly focus of professionals fighting for their lives. She had disrupted their rhythm, forced them out of their comfort zone, but that also made them infinitely more dangerous. Moving from her school-building position proved more challenging than expected. The enemy had quickly adapted to her presence, and Sarah could see muzzle flashes from multiple positions as they attempted to locate and eliminate her. Bullets whispered through the air around her former position, confirming that at least 3 of the remaining snipers had triangulated her last known location with frightening accuracy. Sarah employed every stealth technique in her arsenal, moving between buildings using underground passages, storm drains, and the skeletal remains of bombed structures. The urban environment had become a 3-dimensional chessboard where every move carried lethal consequences. Her ghillie suit had been modified with local debris and dust, helping her blend seamlessly with the war-torn landscape. At 4:15 a.m., she discovered something that changed her understanding of the entire situation. Hidden in the basement of a collapsed apartment building, she found evidence of a sophisticated enemy operation. Maps marked with American patrol routes, photographs of key military personnel, and most disturbing of all, a detailed schedule of convoy movements for the next 2 weeks. This wasn't just a team of opportunistic snipers. This was a coordinated intelligence operation, designed to systematically eliminate American forces. The discovery explained their uncanny ability to anticipate coalition movements and position themselves for maximum effectiveness. Someone with access to classified information was feeding them intelligence, turning routine patrols into carefully orchestrated ambushes. Sarah photographed everything with her tactical camera, knowing this information would be crucial for preventing future attacks. Her investigation was interrupted by the sound of footsteps above. 2 enemy soldiers were conducting a systematic search of the building, moving with the practiced efficiency of special forces operatives. Sarah positioned herself in the shadows beneath a collapsed staircase, her knife drawn and ready. These weren't the snipers she was hunting, but they were clearly part of the same operation. The first soldier descended the stairs cautiously, his assault rifle sweeping the basement's dark corners. Sarah waited until he was directly above her position before striking. Her blade found the gap between his body armor and helmet, ending his life instantly and silently. The second soldier called out to his partner, growing suspicious when no response came. Sarah had seconds before the second man would investigate his partner's disappearance. She positioned the dead soldier's body to appear as though he had tripped and fallen down the stairs, then concealed herself behind a pile of rubble. When the second enemy soldier found his teammate's apparently lifeless body, he knelt to check for a pulse. Sarah's knife ended his life before he could raise an alarm. With the immediate threat neutralized, she continued her hunt for the remaining snipers. The enemy team was becoming increasingly desperate, abandoning their carefully planned positions in favor of more aggressive tactics. Sarah used this desperation against them, predicting their movements based on their psychological state rather than their tactical doctrine. The third sniper fell at 4:47 a.m. He had made the mistake of trying to flank Sarah's presumed position, exposing himself as he moved between buildings. Her shot took him in the upper torso as he attempted to cross a narrow alley, and he collapsed behind an overturned vehicle. Sarah confirmed the kill through her scope before moving to her next position. The fourth and fifth targets proved more challenging. They had partnered up, using coordinated movements and overlapping fields of fire to protect each other. Sarah watched them through her scope as they methodically searched the area where she had eliminated their third teammate. Their discipline was impressive, but it also made them predictable. Sarah positioned herself in an elevated hide overlooking their search area and waited. Patience had served her well throughout the night, and she saw no reason to abandon it now. The enemy snipers were skilled, but they were also human. Eventually, their caution would give way to either frustration or fatigue, and they would make a mistake. That mistake came when the fourth sniper decided to investigate a suspicious shadow near a burned-out car. He moved with appropriate caution, but his partner's position offered an imperfect overwatch angle. For approximately 3 seconds, both snipers were visible in Sarah's scope, positioned in a way that offered her a shot at both targets. The first bullet struck the investigating sniper center mass, dropping him instantly. Sarah immediately shifted her aim to the second target, who was already diving for cover behind a concrete barrier. Her second shot caught him mid-dive, spinning him around and sending his rifle skittering across the pavement. 2 more confirmed kills in less than 5 seconds. 5 enemy snipers eliminated, 5 remaining. But Sarah knew the hardest part of her mission was still ahead. The surviving enemies would be the most skilled, the most cautious, and the most desperate. They had witnessed the systematic destruction of their team and understood they were facing an adversary unlike any they had encountered before. Sarah's ammunition was running low, a concern she hadn't fully anticipated when planning the mission. Each shot had to count, not just for tactical reasons but for simple logistics. She had started the night with 30 rounds of specialized sniper ammunition and had already expended 7. If she encountered all 5 remaining targets simultaneously, she might not have enough bullets to complete the mission. The 6th sniper attempted to turn the tables by hunting Sarah directly. Instead of waiting in a prepared position, he began actively tracking her movements, using the same techniques she had employed against his teammates. Sarah realized what was happening when she noticed subtle signs of surveillance during her movement between positions. The psychological warfare began in earnest as both hunters attempted to get inside each other's heads. The enemy sniper would fire single shots from various positions, not necessarily trying to hit Sarah, but rather to keep her moving, to wear down her nerves and force her into making a mistake. Sarah responded by leaving false sign and deliberate traces of her passage, creating confusion about her actual location and intentions. Their deadly game of cat and mouse played out across the bombed landscape as the night wore on. Sarah used every piece of cover, every shadow, every trick she had learned during her training and deployment. The enemy sniper was equally skilled, anticipating her movements and responding with tactical adjustments that demonstrated years of combat experience. The decisive moment came when Sarah realized her opponent was following a pattern in his harassment shots. He was unconsciously revealing his position through the timing and direction of his fire. Using this information, she plotted his most likely location and began a careful stalk that took nearly an hour to complete. When she finally had a clear shot, the enemy sniper was repositioning between 2 buildings, moving with confidence born of the belief that he was still the hunter rather than the prey. Sarah's bullet found him as he paused to scan the area behind him, a clean shot that ended his threat permanently. 6 down, 4 to go. But time was running short, and the approaching dawn would bring both opportunities and dangers. Sarah could feel exhaustion beginning to affect her focus, the adrenaline that had sustained her through the night starting to fade. She forced herself to remain alert, knowing that a single moment of inattention could prove fatal, with such skilled enemies still operating in the area. Dawn was approaching with the relentless certainty of an incoming tide, painting the eastern horizon with subtle shades of gray that would soon give way to the harsh light of day. Sarah knew she was running out of time. The remaining 4 enemy snipers had gone silent, adopting a defensive posture that suggested they understood the tactical situation had shifted decisively against them. They were no longer hunting American soldiers. They were fighting for survival against an opponent who had systematically dismantled their team. The silence was more unnerving than the earlier gunfire had been. Sarah could feel the weight of hostile eyes watching her every movement, studying her patterns, waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike back. The enemy snipers had abandoned their aggressive tactics in favor of a patient defense, using their intimate knowledge of the local terrain to maximum advantage. Sarah's approach to the final phase of her mission required a fundamental shift in strategy. The remaining enemies would be clustered around their primary escape routes, probably positioned to provide mutual support while maintaining access to the tunnel system beneath the chemical plant. They had survival on their minds now, not mission accomplishment, which made them both more predictable and more dangerous. She began her final approach using a route that took her through the plant's primary manufacturing area. The massive industrial equipment provided excellent concealment, but it also limited her lines of sight and created numerous potential ambush positions. Sarah moved with extreme caution, checking every shadow, every corner, every possible hiding spot before advancing. The seventh enemy sniper had positioned himself in the facility's main control room, using the elevated position to observe the surrounding area while maintaining quick access to the tunnel entrance hidden beneath the building's foundation. Sarah spotted his position through the thermal signature visible in one of the control room's shattered windows. His body heat created a subtle distortion that her trained eye could detect even at significant range. The shot required precision beyond anything she had attempted that night. The target was partially concealed behind industrial equipment, visible only from specific angles, and the range pushed her rifle's capabilities to their maximum effective distance. Sarah spent 20 minutes calculating wind speed, temperature variations, and the bullet's trajectory before taking position. When she finally squeezed the trigger, the bullet traveled for what seemed like an eternity before finding its target. The enemy sniper dropped from sight, and Sarah immediately repositioned herself to avoid return fire from his remaining teammates. 7 down, 3 to go. But those 3 would be the most dangerous of all. The 8th target made his presence known by attempting to flank Sarah's position using the underground tunnel system. She heard the subtle scraping of boots on concrete emanating from a drainage grate near her position and realized the enemy had tried to use their escape route as an attack vector. Sarah positioned herself above the tunnel entrance and waited with her sidearm drawn. When the enemy sniper emerged from the tunnel, he found himself looking directly into the barrel of Sarah's pistol. The close-quarters engagement lasted less than 2 seconds, ending with the enemy's death and Sarah's immediate relocation to avoid detection by his remaining teammates. 8 down, 2 enemies left, and time running out rapidly. The final 2 snipers had positioned themselves in the chemical plant's main tower, using its height advantage and multiple exit points to create a nearly impregnable defensive position. Sarah could see their muzzle flashes as they fired at shadows and suspected movements, their nerves clearly frayed by the systematic elimination of their team. They knew she was close, but they couldn't locate her exact position. Sarah's final gambit involved a calculated risk that would have horrified her commanding officers if they had witnessed it. She deliberately exposed herself in an open area between buildings, drawing fire from both remaining enemies and confirming their positions in the tower. Their shots came close enough to kick up dust around her feet, but she remained motionless long enough to mark their exact locations through their muzzle flashes. Rolling behind cover as bullets continued to snap through the air around her, Sarah calculated firing solutions for both targets. They were positioned on different levels of the tower, with overlapping fields of fire that made a direct approach impossible. She would need to eliminate both targets in rapid succession to prevent the survivor from repositioning or escaping through the tunnel system. Sarah's penultimate shot took the higher-positioned sniper through the tower's damaged concrete wall, the high-powered round punching through the deteriorated material and finding its target. She immediately shifted her aim to the second position, but the final enemy sniper had already begun moving toward the tower's exit. The last engagement became a race against time, as Sarah attempted to reach a position with a clear shot before her target could escape into the tunnels. She sprinted across open ground, abandoning stealth in favor of speed, knowing that failure to stop this final enemy would compromise the entire mission. The final enemy sniper appeared in her scope just as he reached the tower's base, his retreat taking him past a gap in the structure's protective wall. Sarah's last shot of the night struck him as he dove for cover, the impact spinning him around and ending his threat permanently. 10 enemy snipers eliminated, mission accomplished with minutes to spare before sunrise. As the first rays of sunlight painted the chemical plant's towers in shades of gold and orange, Sarah emerged from her concealment and began the long walk back to the extraction point. Her radio crackled to life as Colonel Harrison's voice requested a situation report. She keyed the microphone with hands that trembled slightly from exhaustion and adrenaline. Ghost to base. Mission complete. 10 confirmed enemy eliminated. Intelligence package secured. Requesting immediate extraction and medical support for wounded friendlies in Sector 7. Her voice was steady, despite the fatigue that threatened to overwhelm her. The intelligence Sarah had discovered in the basement proved invaluable in dismantling a broader enemy network that had been responsible for dozens of American casualties. The photographs and documents led to the identification of the insider who had been providing classified information, ultimately saving countless lives through the prevention of future ambushes. Sarah's actions that night earned her the Navy Cross and immediate promotion. But more importantly, they broke the back of enemy sniper operations in the region. The psychological impact of losing an entire team of elite snipers to a single American operative sent shockwaves through insurgent networks across the country. The message was clear. American forces would not be intimidated, and they possessed the skills and determination to meet any challenge. 3 weeks later, Sarah received a letter from the family of Sergeant Michael Torres, one of the soldiers whose life she had saved during that first engagement. His wife thanked her for allowing their 3 children to grow up with their father, a reminder that behind every tactical victory lay real human lives that had been preserved through courage and skill. The night that had begun with 10 enemy snipers terrorizing American forces ended with their complete elimination and the security of countless future patrols. Sarah, Ghost Martinez, had proven that determination, training, and courage could overcome even the most daunting odds. Her legend would grow in the years that followed, inspiring a new generation of special operations personnel and serving as a testament to the extraordinary capabilities of America's elite warriors. As she boarded the helicopter that would take her back to base, Sarah allowed herself a moment to reflect on the night's events. She had faced the ultimate test of her training and skills, emerging victorious against overwhelming odds. But more than personal triumph, she had protected her fellow soldiers and struck a decisive blow against those who threatened innocent lives. The sun climbed higher in the Iraqi sky as the helicopter disappeared into the distance, carrying Sarah away from a battlefield where she had written one of the most remarkable chapters in the annals of special operations warfare. The chemical plant below lay silent now, its towers and buildings serving as monuments to a night when one American warrior had proven that courage and skill could overcome any enemy, regardless of their reputation or numbers.